All right, man, peace. So I just have to make a video about one of the, in my view, great surprises in the NBA, and that being the Houston Rockets. Prior to the season, I thought that the Rockets, as well as the Thunder, would be very competitive, but I thought that the Thunder would be the slightly better team due to their physicality that I thought that the Thunder would have and that they could potentially bring to the Warriors. Well, right now, the Rockets are proving me incorrect, at least in regard to their regular season performance, which does give me, as Stephen A. Smith would say, a cause to pause for now because, let's face it, their two lead players, Chris Paul and James Harden, or James Hardhead as I call him, are both known for exploiting the NBA's regular season, putting up big numbers, and then getting to the playoffs and flaming out. So we'll see what happens. But as of right now, they are definitely rising as a threat, as posing a threat to the Golden State Warriors, who are the current NBA champions. So they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
So this moment, Chris Paul, look, from the time he engineered his trade to Houston, there were questions, right? Don't CP and James Harden both need the ball? How will the locker room work? And of course, the elephant in any room out west. Yeah, we did that. Why bother? Do the Rockets really think they can beat the Warriors? Well, the answer to that last one is yes, actually, but we will get back to that. As for Chris Paul, all those questions about fit only intensified after he was injured in Houston's season opener, and James Harden spent the next month balling out. In fact, the new question became, is Chris going to ruin it when he returns? Well, now we have our answer to that one too, folks. With last night's win over the Jazz, the Rockets improved to 8-0 with CP back in the lineup, and Chris himself, man, continues to be a marvel.
Well, Chris Paul is a Hall of Famer. Everybody knows that he's a great player, but what he is proving with his performance, as well as the performance of the team, is that he is nowhere near the divisive locker room figure as many thought he was, as even myself thought he may have been. He clearly has fit in very, very well with his new team in Houston, and he's showing that the Clippers had a litany of problems, and he was not one of them. That's basically what he's showing, as well as the fact that he can fit into any system, which all great players, truly great players, can do. And I would not mind seeing Chris Paul win a championship this season. Whenever you have a player like him who is advancing in age and who has done great things in the NBA, it is nice to see them win a championship and actually be a primary piece in winning a championship. So we'll see what happens, but I would not mind seeing him win one.
It is just fun watching him play with this team. Look at him toying with Ricky Rubio and Rudy.
And it would just be interesting if he were to win one. It would be the second time that Carmelo Anthony had the chance to be on a super team and was unable to do so, and it may cost him a chance at a title.
Rudy Gobert here, and it's not as if those two guys just fell off a turnip truck or anything. And poor Alec Burks, yeah, not the first one, but...
Nutmeg.
And there's the pick and pop game, too, that he's running with Ryan Anderson. It's just silly at this point. According to Second Spectrum, Anderson is scoring on 79% of his threes when fed by Paul.
Is that good?
I'm just going to say that again. Chris is so savvy about how and where he gets guys the ball. He's got Ryan Anderson shooting 79% from behind the arc. In fact, he's done wonders for the Rockets as a whole in that department. Before CP returned to the lineup, Houston was shooting a ton of threes, but not particularly well. So they were averaging 34% from behind the arc, 25th in the NBA. Since Paul returned, they're shooting 42% from three, number 2 in the league. That is a jump, I'll say it again, from 25th in the league to number 2 in the league.
Let me say this, and that is an extremely pertinent statistic that she brought up. But what that is going to show in the future is that for a team to beat the Rockets, number one, they're going to have to be better at that style than the Rockets are. But it's also going to have to be a team that's in very good condition, great physical condition, because they're going to have to cover a large part of the floor defensively to run them off the line and contest those three-point shots. And the only team that I see in the NBA right now that can possibly do that are the Golden State Warriors. But when I watched the Houston Rockets against the San Antonio Spurs, and the Rockets, they're really clicking on all cylinders. They're clicking on all cylinders. But once again, it is the regular season and it is early. So I want to see how they look around February, March before I really make any type of proclamation as to whether or not they have a truly realistic chance to beat the Warriors. And of course, you have the potential for injuries. But let's please understand that neither James Harden nor Chris Paul have ever come close to winning a championship, and they both have flamed out in big playoff moments. I've had many people come on my comments and say, oh, well, how could you say that about James Harden? He's put up big numbers. Yeah, but in his biggest moments, not only has he not performed well, he's been terrible. He was horrific in that last game last year against the Spurs. And even in the conference finals when he went against the Warriors in 2015, he had one game, I think it was the closeout game, where the man had something like 11 turnovers.
And of course, the song everyone likes to sing about the Rockets is that, sure, the offense is great, but the defense, there we go. Yeah, that's the huge difference between them and the Warriors. Except that tune has changed too. Chris Paul has been named first-team All-Defense 7 times for a reason, and his addition, plus that of P.J. Tucker, plus Luke Mahmoud, has vaulted the Rockets into the top 5 defensively. They are number 1 in defensive rebounding, and if you want to just throw your comparisons out there, the Warriors are ranked 7th and 19th in those categories. And let me be super clear. No one is crowning Houston at all. The Rockets' real test will be in the playoffs. Everything until then is prelude. But as we have seen in Oklahoma City, throwing stars together isn't always a sure thing.
Well, throwing stars together is not always a sure thing, depending on the style of offense that you're running and the style of your best player. If your best player is a nut job like Russell Westbrook, then it's going to be hard to pair him with other affluent players or players who demand the ball. But if you're running a system that demands constant ball movement and player movement, and you have a guy like a Chris Paul who is a distributor, even though he is a guy who was known as a player who liked to have the ball in his hands, he's showing that he is adaptable. So he deserves credit for that. So that leads to more team continuity. It leads to a greater rapport amongst the members of the team, and that leads to success.
Chris Paul has made this work. He has evolved in all the ways folks thought he couldn't. He has had the answer to every question.
Agreed.
And Tracy, you weren't sure initially that this was going to work out, and we watched your mind change over this time.
Well, I didn't know how it was going to work. I knew the team was going to be successful. I just didn't know how successful Chris Paul will be into the system.
I agree with that. I did not think that him and James Harden would be getting along very well after a while. And I was going off of Chris Paul's reputation in LA with the Clippers. And I was also going off of James Harden's reputation in regards to some of the dust-ups that he's had with Dwight Howard. I thought that after a while that they would not be getting along very well, arguing over the basketball. I've clearly been very wrong about that. They've done very, very well together. Let's see what happens when they hit a little rough patch in the road. That's when you really find out how close many of these teammates are and team members are. Adversity is what reveals the truth.
They were going to win ball games like this with or without Chris Paul. The tell test for this team is in the playoffs, like you just said.
Agreed.
We know they're going to have a phenomenal regular season because that's the style of play that they play. Put up a lot of points. They seem to be playing better defense this year, but the test is when they get to the playoffs. Let's see how much of a difference Chris Paul makes when these guys get to the playoffs. I'm not really worried about them in the regular season. They're fine.
You know, Rachel, the thing that people don't get is that Mike D'Antoni's offense is tailor-made for an elite point guard. Give him 2 elite point guards, now you're really dealing with fire here.
Well, I mean, Mike likes to say, right, give me a Hall of Famer on the court for all 48 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, again, pretty much. And so what we're seeing here is, if you want to compare them to Oklahoma City, the biggest thing is, there's an identity. They know how they want to play. They have a set system. It's not a my turn, your turn.
Right.
It's...
Well, you have to have a my turn, your turn system with Russell Westbrook. That's obvious. It's obvious that he's not somebody who plays well off the ball. It's obvious that he's somebody who doesn't make quick decisions. So a lot of times the style of system that you run is predicated off of the style of your player. Once again, when you compare the Rockets to OKC, you have to compare not only the coaching and the coaching style, but also the players and the playing style. That's why I say Russell Westbrook, man, he's like a great action movie. I've made this analogy numerous times. He's fun to watch, but he's not going to win any awards come Oscar time, man. When Rambo comes on Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon, right? Lethal Weapon, Predator, you sit down and watch it. It's fun to watch. But that motherfucker ain't win no Oscars. And that's Russell Westbrook.
It's pick and roll over here. When the weak side is rotating, we're going to swing, and then we're going to pick and roll on the other side.
You got two guys dominating the ball. Everybody else is spot-up shooters.
Or finishing at the rim like Capella.
Absolutely.
And so there's a combination of that. There's a combination of what you mentioned, Luc Richard Bamute, PJ Tucker, defensive blue-collar behavior mentality.
And they're very important, having those hard-nosed guys, because you're going to need those guys to take fouls on a player like Kevin Durant. It's going to be very interesting to see how Golden State tackles this team. It's going to be a tough series. Because also remember, the Rockets, not only are they hungry, but they have players that have something to prove. Like Chris Paul and James Harden, like they have something to prove big time. So they're going to make Golden State dig deep. I would be surprised if they were to encounter each other in the playoffs if that was a quick 5-game series.
And that's the other thing. When people talk about Mike D'Antoni, they say, oh, he doesn't coach defense. No, he's always said, give me great defensive players and I'll give you a great defense. Well, he's got great defensive players now. And now you can see a guy like James Harden, who isn't a great defender, but surrounded with great defenders, now the team is good.
And before T-Mac speaks, not only that, but as I've been stating, James Harden recently came out and said that he lost 12 pounds from last year. So as I've been telling you, brothers, when you see these guys like a James Harden playing their matador defense, it's because they're fat bastards. That's why. James Harden finally got his big ass in shape. A lot of these guys are out there on the court and you think they're in shape and they're really not. You say, oh, well, they're professional athletes. They must be in shape. No, they're not. Not for what they're doing. They might be able to come out here and bust a regular person ass as far as conditioning. But as a professional, elite basketball player, no. There ain't but maybe 8 or 9 guys in the NBA who are in an elite level of conditioning and are elite players. You're talking about Steph, you're talking about Kawhi, you're talking about Durant, you're talking about LeBron, of course, you're talking about Westbrook. Those guys are at an elite level of conditioning where they can go hard for 40-plus minutes on both ends of the court. That's how Golden State gets you. Everybody says, damn, how come Golden State always comes out in the third quarter and beats down teams? You know why? Because they're in the third quarter. They're just as fresh as if it's the first quarter. And many of these other teams are starting to wear down because Golden State moves so much without the ball. They start to wear you down. That's why I call them the Muhammad Ali of the NBA. Ali would come out early and he would fill you out. And then he would start to press you. And then he'd make you chase him. And before you know it, you're getting hit by counters and you're getting hit by combinations because you're just so tired. And then the speed is just overwhelming. Same thing with Golden State. They wear you down, they bring you into the deep water, and they drown you. And that's the type of team, that's the only type of team that I can see really handling this Rockets team right now, because I don't know if San Antonio can muddy up the waters enough to beat the Rockets. Not with how they're playing right now, and not having a two-horned monster. Last year, the Rockets were a unicorn. They only had one horn. Now they're a bull. They got 2 horns.
With the numbers that they're putting up as far as offensively and defensively, they should be in a championship game.
I mean, that's the thing. Yes, we can't judge them to the playoffs. That will be the bar. And that's a credit to them, by the way, that the bar is that high. But I do think that you have to note the way that Chris is integrated with this team gives you some signs about what that playoff run might look like. I agree.
I think that sometimes when you watch a team play, you can tell that, this is not the same team. They're going to be different in the playoffs, and that's what I see from them. Just by watching them, they're going to be much better in the playoffs than I thought that they would be. And I have to give them credit for that. The way that they've been able to come together, and also Chris Paul and James Harden, they spent a lot of time together in the offseason, and that has obviously paid big dividends this regular season.
Like the fact that James Harden, his workload is going to only get lighter and better as the season goes on, now that Chris is sort of back in the lineup regularly. The fact that the defense and the habits are there, it's just giving us these indications that Chris, this tweak, worked the way that Daryl Morey thought it was going to work, as opposed to, again, other places where we haven't seen it work in the same way.
And really quickly, every week we have to vote on the power rankings. As a composite of myself and a bunch of other writers. Since the beginning of the season, 1 is Golden State and 2 is Houston for me, and it's not even a question.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
There we go.
I agree with that as well. Cleveland's going to have to show that they can compete with the Rockets. They went out to Houston and they performed pretty well, but it's going to be very interesting to see how they perform when the Rockets come to Cleveland. All right, so now we're going to listen to Stephen A. and Max talk about the Rockets and whether or not they have a chance to beat the Golden State Warriors. Let's see what they have to say.
Antonio, thank you. Rockets are soaring. Winners of 11 straight, and Clint Capella's feeling good about their chances against the Warriors in the playoffs. Stephen A., should the Warriors be concerned about their path back to the finals?
Well, I definitely think they should be concerned. I mean, they're going to be the favorites, and it's not.
I don't think they should be concerned. I just think that they should be vigilant, which I'm sure that they are. Every king on the throne, you have to monitor possible usurpers.
It's not like I can see anybody beating them, but if there's a team to be worried about, I think it would be Houston, simply because the acquisition of Chris Paul, listen, what we have to recognize is that Chris Paul may be the greatest little point guard since Isaiah Thomas. This dude is
Well, him and John Stockton
is absolutely sensational. And forget the points per se, like he dropped 31 last night. It's his floor generalship. It's the leadership that he provides on the court, running an offense. Now he wanted to get off the ball. Him and James Harden are getting along so well because James Harden was thrusted into the point guard spot last year where he was runner-up for league MVP, but ultimately he ran out of gas in that postseason, particularly against the San Antonio Spurs. He wanted to get back off the ball a little bit, but obviously he still wants to have some point guard dudes. Chris Paul has been a point guard all his life and ball dominant. He wants to prove, like he told me several times over the last several months, he wants to prove that he can play off the ball as well.
And that, once again, is the reason why their team is so successful, because when you can play off the ball, that creates a diversity of options in your offense. That creates a system that is much more malleable. See, when you have a team like OKC, none of their guys are spot-up shooters. All three of their guys, whether it's Westbrook, Paul George, or Carmelo Anthony, when they catch the ball, they don't want to just catch and shoot. They got to put the ball down for at least 2 to 3 dribbles to get their rhythm, because they're scorers, they're not shooters. And that takes away from a lot of the flow and continuity that they could have in their offense.
He doesn't always want the responsibility of having to run an offense and be on the ball. He wants to do what he naturally does, but he doesn't want to have the responsibility, Max, of having to do it all the time. So they spell for one another. They supplement and provide comfort and stability for one another. They also energize one another because they take pressure off of each other. And then we haven't even gotten into the way the other guys benefit. Clint Capella runs the floor better. That's why he's the ideal replacement to what Dwight Howard once gave them. You know, Trevor.
And plus, the thing with Clint Capella is that he's not going to loaf when he doesn't get the basketball. He's a guy who's just happy to get it. And he's much more aware of what's going on in the offense even though he's not a number one option. See, the thing with Dwight was Dwight still wants it to be like it was when he was in Orlando, when, you know, he went down in the post and he got a pass every time and he kicked the ball out for 3. Like, they don't want to run that type of offense in Houston. They want a big who's going to set hard screens and rim run. And on the defensive end, he's going to block shots. And he's going to be happy when he gets the ball. He's not going to expect to get the basketball. Dwight expected the ball. That's why the rapport between him and Harden was so poor. Because Harden wanted to be the top dog, really as he should have been. And Dwight still wanted to act like it was 2009 in Orlando, and it wasn't.
Trevor Ariza and Eric Gordon and Ryan Anderson can shoot the rock. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, you know offensively they can put the ball in the hole, which is the only chance you have against the Golden State Warriors. But then lo and behold, these guys are actually playing defense right now. Do I think that part could last against Golden State? No. But I can't ignore the fact that they're top 5 defense right now.
And to be quite honest with you, it would not surprise me if Golden State decided to slow the game down a little bit against the Rockets. Just to see if the Rockets can run a half-court set as well as Golden State can run a half-court set. Try to take away a lot of the frenetic aspect of Houston's scoring that they love so much. Houston wants to get you in that run-and-shoot type of game. The thing about Golden State is that they can beat you a multitude of ways. So if you're Golden State, do you really want to run with this team?
So I give credit where credit is due, because even though I'm not going to sit there and tell you that they could beat the Golden State Warriors, the legitimate argument can be made that this is the threat to the Golden State Warriors within the Western Conference, even though San Antonio has been playing without Kawhi Leonard, and now that he's back, we'll see.
Yeah, at this point, I would agree with that. I just want to see how good San Antonio gets once Kawhi is fully healthy. Because Kawhi obviously is going to be the guy that they put on James Harden. They definitely going to need Tony Parker to get very, very healthy because they're going to have to find a way to try to wear down Chris Paul.
Leave something for me.
Even though Chris Paul has always been Tony Parker's kryptonite, even when Tony Parker was younger.
Because that's actually the answer. Look, the Rockets, should they be concerned about the Rockets? I'll tell you why quickly. If you're concerned about the Rockets, you'd be concerned because they always had the only strategy that may have worked against the Golden State Warriors, given the shooters they had, which is shoot as many threes as possible. All the points. Like, they're an extreme version of what the analytics say. Everything in the paint or from three. Everything. And if you have a very talented guy who can run your offense, James Harden, the D'Antoni system, then great. You know, D'Antoni's doubling down on what he wanted to do in Phoenix, so I always said they had a puncher's chance. What the Rockets did in the offseason is add talent to a strategy that maybe should concern the Warriors. So now they have like a puncher's chance, but where the puncher can also box because they added Chris Paul. And yet, and still...
I like that analogy. That is a good analogy because with Chris Paul, when Max says that they're now a puncher that can also box, what he means is that now they actually can run a half-court set. That's the only danger now that I see with the Rockets is that, see, they could always score with the Warriors, but now they actually can control pace. So that's why, you know, this is going to be a very, very interesting series if and when they should play. Because I believe that when they're running full court, Harden's going to be the one carrying most of the load of the offense. But should they have to go half court, it's going to be more Chris Paul. Because they know that he's going to make better decisions. And they're going to need that because every possession will count against the Warriors.
No, I would not consider that the team where if I were Golden State, I'd be concerned. There is a team I'd be concerned about. Stephen A., you identified it at the end, and it is the San Antonio Spurs. And the reason I'd be concerned is that team's got 19 wins and Kawhi just got back, and they lost his first game back. LaMarcus Aldridge is back to being LaMarcus Aldridge in Kawhi's absence. But guys, that's not even the key. The reason I'd be concerned about San Antonio and not the Rockets if I were the Warriors is actually Danny Green. When Danny Green is having obviously the
Ain't nobody worried about no fucking Danny Green. The hell is this guy talking about?
San Antonio guard. When Danny Green is having an excellent season, the Spurs sometimes look unbeatable. But he's up and down with this season. Some seasons, better than others, which is why he's not a perennial all-star. And
Danny Green is a nice role player who'll hit a wide open three every once in a while, and he'll play hard on defense. Danny Green ain't making or breaking your fucking season, man. Get out of here. This guy must be back on his damn ADD pills, allegedly.
And in those down seasons, they're tough, but they're not going to win in the playoffs. But Danny Green this year is balling. He's hitting everything. He's playing his usual excellent defense. And considering, Stephen A., when last seen with Kawhi, the Spurs were beating the brakes off the Warriors, and then Kawhi goes down and then their season ends, basically. You're getting Kawhi back, and Danny Green's having one of those Danny Green seasons, which means they win the championship. That is the team I'd identify if I were Golden State to say, that's the challenge. Good as the Rockets are, I identified why they're more serious this year than in the past. They ain't going to beat the Warriors. But if someone has a chance to do it, it's going to be San Antonio.
Well, let's pump the brakes on Danny Green just a little bit, who I'm very, very fond of. But he's averaging 9 points a game. It's not.
Thank you, Steve.
It's not like he's averaging 19 or 29. Let's just put it in perspective is all I'm asking, number one. Number two, let's also make sure that we're careful to not overrate what we saw with San Antonio in Game 1 against the Golden State Warriors last year with Kawhi Leonard on the floor. They were obviously up like 23, 24 points. Kawhi Leonard looked sensational. But we are talking about the Golden State Warriors here. We have seen this team against many teams literally explode inside of a 5-minute span.
I agree. They go on some of the greatest runs I've ever seen a team go on. Like Golden State they be going like 32-5 runs in 4 minutes.
Where, I mean, even though it was against a young Philadelphia 76ers team this year, just to use it as an example, they're down 24 at the half. Forget the fact that they won the game. That's irrelevant. What mattered was is that they outscored them 47-14 in the third quarter, and a blitzkrieg just ultimately took place. I'm saying these are the Golden State Warriors. It is entirely plausible that last year in game 1, even while they were struggling and they were down 20-something, they could have come back and win that game.
I agree, even though I doubt it. The way that game was going, I think that they were just going to lose that game. But, I mean, you never know. But San Antonio was controlling the pace of that game because Golden State made a couple of runs before Kawhi went down. And San Antonio was able to normalize the run because of their understanding of pace and the way that Kawhi was dominating the game. So I believe that they would have lost that game, but I do believe they would have beat them in like 6, maybe 7.
Even if Kawhi Leonard had not gone down, it's the Golden State Warriors. So I'm just saying that we have to look at things from that perspective and understand what really, really gnaws away at them. The ability for teams to score from the perimeter. That as great as Golden State is defensively, you know, when you can hit perimeter shots, you can hit perimeter shots. San Antonio, they play with precision. They're exceptionally well coached. They play together. All of those things are true. But are you really going to rely on Pau Gasol at this stage? LaMarcus Aldridge is having a damn good season, but it's the regular season. We all know what happens to him most of the time come playoff time.
Well, we'll see. Well, after years of experience, maybe the brother is mentally stronger. Maybe he understands the system better. Maybe, the fact that Kawhi was down for almost 30 games has allowed him to feel more comfortable in the offense and what his role is. Things happen, Steve. You just can't always go by what he's done, quote unquote, in the playoffs with San Antonio because he has had very good playoff performances with Portland. So it's not like this guy has never stepped up in the playoffs. He probably just was very uncomfortable in the San Antonio Spurs system. So I believe that he's deserving of a little bit of leeway. We'll see what he does in this year's playoffs. He's damn sure never had a complete disappearing act like James Harden had in the deciding game last year in the playoffs against San Antonio. Nobody's ever had a game that bad.
We got to see if this year's going to be different. There's always those questions.
I mean, shit, that was even worse than some of LeBron's performances against the Mavericks.
And with Houston, you got more answers than questions because you know the personnel they have are guys that you can rely upon in terms of simply hitting shots.
Don't you have questions about Houston in the playoffs too?
I do have it. Yeah, but they can hit shots.
Look, even Molly said, you don't have any questions about Houston in the playoffs too, Harden? Even Molly asked, remember what Harden did last year or didn't do.
And Harden has never had CP3. And think about this. 6 years ago, CP3 was supposed to be with Kobe. This is when Kobe was James Harden. So imagine what that would have been. Now you've got this.
That would have been whack juice. Their asses wouldn't have did shit because Kobe would not have been able to play with Chris Paul. That would have been a lot like Russell Westbrook with Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. That would not have worked.
I mean, I look at it from...
And I'm sure a lot of the Kobe fanboys are going to get upset by that. How can you say that? Kobe played with other great players. How you going to say that? That shit would not have worked. Kobe wants to dominate the ball. He does not want to be an off-the-ball player. The perfect system for Kobe was the triangle. Because what the triangle does is it allows players like Kobe or Michael to find different positions, in the offense where they can get easy baskets. For those two, it was in the medium post area or on the elbow, or when they needed to, they could run a 1-4 set where they get the ball at the top of the key, everybody spread out, let them do their thing. But no, this Mike D'Antoni's system was never good for Kobe because Kobe's not a ball mover. He's a ball stopper.
From that perspective, and I'm saying, look, man, this is a guard-oriented game.
Look,
I
told you in the beginning of this season that the Rockets and not Oklahoma City might be the biggest threat to the Warriors, and you poo-pooed it then.
I don't want to hear...
Don't try to turn it around now.
I don't want to hear anything about you. The way you talked about CP3, you should apologize.
Why
I want to hear that from you. You should apologize. You didn't talk about CP3?
What did I say?
Did I lie? Did I lie on CP3? No, did I lie on CP3? Just like you didn't lie on Kyrie. You wrong on two fronts.
Shots fired. Stephen A. letting it all out now. Well, he was wrong on Kyrie. What Max stated about Chris Paul is something that, you know, most people have heard about Chris Paul, which is that has an issue in the locker room. Some people say that, you know, some people use words as strong as cancer in the locker room, but as I stated in the early part of this video, he has proven me and others wrong who heard that and started to believe it. Or maybe he's just matured to the point where he has understood the error of his ways and he's amended them. And that happens in life through maturity and growth. So either way, he deserves credit.
Right, you over on that?
No, I had questions about Kyrie. He's answering them.
I'm sorry, you
That's
had
right.
questions.
That's right.
Questions, really?
That's right.
All right, you had questions.
And by the
so
way,
you had
and
no
by the way,
opinion. You had no opinion, you
the
had
San
questions.
Antonio.
Yeah, and you didn't have no damn questions. You had assertions. So you got to own that. And I partially agree with Max Kellerman on many of his sentiments about Kyrie. That Kyrie was more of a weapon than a leader of a team. But Kyrie has proved me wrong, and I'm very happy for that. And I was happy for Kyrie when he decided to make that move to Boston, because that was part of his growth and his manhood, as he himself stated. It was time for him to make that move, take over his own team, become a member of an affluent organization with a legacy, with a tradition, and build his own history there, build his own legacy there. That's part of what being a man is all about. So great for Kyrie. And good for Chris Paul, too. That's why I stated I would like to see Chris Paul win a championship this year. I wouldn't mind seeing the Rockets go against the Celtics in this year's finals. That would be very exciting. I don't think that's what it's going to be. I think it's going to be Golden State and Cleveland again. But I wouldn't mind seeing the Rockets and the Celtics.
Antonio
Just a
Spurs
question
can
mark.
hit the three, including Kawhi Leonard, their
stop
best
it.
player,
Oh, stop
and Danny Green, the
stop
key
it.
on that team.
Thank
Watch
God I
the
got
San
my
Antonio
team.
Spurs this
Thank God
season.
I have
All
my
right,
team.
you two
ain't
are
gonna-
cute.
CP3
Both of
and
you.
Kyrie.
Okay.
Both of them will look. Both
All
of them
right.
looking for you,
All
by the
right.
way.
That's fine. I'm right here.
Okay, guys, let's keep it rolling. How close is
But anyway, that's the video on the Rockets. They're definitely a team to watch. They're on a hot streak right now. Let's see how long it lasts. And more importantly, let's see how they act when they hit a little stretch of adversity, when they lose 3 out of 4, or 2 out of 4, or 3 out of 5, something like that. Let's see if any finger pointing starts. Let's see if Chris Paul or James Harden start to look at each other with suspicion. I doubt it, because Chris Paul's at the point in his life and in his career where he's looking at the bigger picture. And I think James is at the same place also. Even though he's only 28, 27, 28, 29, however old he is. They're both at the level where they're willing to work through adversity, not point fingers, and not look for more credit than they deserve to have. So we'll see. Anyway, peace.